Hey Slingers, thanks for tuning in to another week of the Wordslinger podcast. They tell you to write what you know, but there's a whole lot around you may not realize is there. So we're going to explore that and more in today's episode of the Wordslinger podcast. Stick around.
It's the Wordslinger podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented pants optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger.
Wordslinger.
Well, I am Kevin Tomlinson, the Wordslinger. Thanks for tuning in for another week of the Wordslinger podcast. I'm glad you're here. Now, I'm talking to Joe Start. He does something really kind of cool. He does these audio tours of, cemeteries and other things. And I think you're going to kind of dig what he's pulled together here. We're talking about his book, The Chair King, or The Chair Father. I'm sorry, Joe. The Chair Father. And you're going to want to hear that and check that book out. But in addition to that, I kind of love what he's doing with this whole audio tour thing. It's something I think I might explore myself. But I'm really intrigued by the idea of looking for the stories around you. So we're going to get into that and more after the interview. So stick around for that and enjoy this interview with Joe Start. See you on the other side. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so I'm chatting with Joe Start. And I did not clear this with him to begin with, which is part of my normal housekeeping, Joe. I'm sorry. I normally ask you, I want to introduce you as the author of The Chair Father. Is that how I would introduce you?
Sure. It's my second book that I just released, and quite different from the first book. So yes, I'm the author of The Chair Father.
Where does that title come from, The Chair Father?
Well, the Chair Father is kind of a play on words for the Père Lachaise cemetery here in Paris, which is actually the most visited cemetery in the world, and it's kind of the theme of the book, as well as some tours that go along with it. Anyways, it just translates literally to the Chair Father. If you're literally translating it from French to English, Père Lachaise is the Chair Father.
That's interesting. But what is that? Where does that come from? What's the context of that?
The context is I wanted to have something which would be a bit funny and kind of play on the theme that I'm going through, that I'll tell you about, and that seemed to work really well, especially because whenever you have a title like that, people automatically think of like The Godfather or something serious or something something kind of like ooh gosh, I wonder what's going to go on, and then they pick up the book and they just see that it's just goofiness.
Yeah. So it's comedy. What's the sort of general idea behind the book?
To take you back to like the genius of the whole thing, it all comes from my mom. Like a lot of things in life, your parents either do funny things or say funny things or have a funny reaction to what you do, and then you sort of riff on that. So my mom lives in LA, and she's obsessed by celebrities. And so she'll call me, randomly at all hours. Of course, she still hasn't got this whole time thing figured out, because she's in LA, I'm in Paris, 9 hours behind her. And so, sometimes 1 a.m., 2 a.m. phone calls. Joe, guess who died? What? I'm thinking like somebody in the family, somebody like, a neighbor, a former classmate or something like that. And then she'll say, Lucille Ball. And it's like, what? Okay, I guess. Well, she was pretty old, and she probably had to go at some time. Right. And then I'll just say whatever, and I'll just pass it along until the next one. Joe, Charles Nelson Riley. I said, what, like that guy from the Match Game or something like that? It's like, I'm trying to even remember sometimes where these celebrities come from. And so she would just constantly do this, and it became like a thing. And she thought because I laughed, sometimes that I really enjoyed it. It was like really annoying. to have these phone calls and such. And so I kept thinking, gosh, how can I get back at her? Back at her for all of these annoying phone calls. And so at the time, I worked very close to the Père Lachaise cemetery, and I said, I know what I'll do. I'll go by the Père Lachaise cemetery, and I'll have selfies. I'll take pictures of myself having lunch with dead celebrities.
I love it.
And so, here's me with a sandwich and a Marcel Proust. Here's me with, with a donut and, Edith Piaf, and just going around to them. And I put all this inside a photo album for my mom. And then after I did that, it did a couple things. Well, first of all, it didn't stop my mom.
Right.
She still calls and tells me about the celebrities that pass away. But the other thing that did, it kind of like sparked an idea in my head. Maybe this could be turned into a book, for some people that are interested in the lives of these celebrities, or they're interested in the background of their lives and such like that. And so I decided to put those into a book. But inside the photo book, it would just be like me, the bumbling sort of interviewer, having a lunch and an interview with these different stars, and making sort of rash offhand comments about their life, and why did they do this and why did they do that, and so half of the joke is on them, half of the joke is on me, or sometimes it's a little bit of a tribute to the person in these interviews. So the entire book, well, I can show you a little bit about it. So the book is like this. It's all black, and it's sort of very artsy, where you got like a picture of the tomb, and then the text on each page. So you might pick it up and say, oh, this is like an art book or something like that. And then you read it for a little bit, and you realize it's more fartsy than artsy.
Yeah. It's I don't know if this is the right vibe or not, but the vibe I'm getting is sort of Stephen Fry's like world tour kind of things. That's kind of the
exactly. Idea. That, or Monty Python, or different things where they're just like making fun of things, and it's just hopefully at the limit of inappropriate without stepping over the line.
Yeah. It's a fuzzy line now, man.
It is. It is. I tend to walk that line, and some things. I don't know. Have you ever been in a situation where you just like you just cannot laugh, but you do, because you just find the situation so funny. It's hopefully one of those kinds of books where somebody might pick it up and get a good laugh out of it, especially if they have a little bit of background about the people there.
I do find it interesting that you're focusing a lot on like that cemetery is a good example of this. I mean, we have a tendency to not want to be irreverent around cemeteries. So the fact that you're bringing humor into that scenario is I think it's that uncomfortable laughter at first.
Right. When I first mention it to people, they go, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Yeah. I think it'll be funny. Oh yeah. And then like sometimes there's your picture in it and stuff, and it's like, why not? I've seen worse. I've definitely seen worse on the internet or different things, and those worse things make me laugh. So hopefully, without going quite over the edge, but right up to it, it can amuse some folks.
Yeah, I mean, do you worry about coming off as disrespectful in any way?
I do worry about it. In fact, some of the things that I wanted to say, when I showed it around to people, is kind of like the crew that might do the reviews before the book is released, and I kind of toned it down for some of them, but I think that I didn't want to tone it down if it was less funny. Sometimes that feedback would be good for me to sort of see, you got to work on this a little bit more. Yeah, you maybe got something which is funny, but it's not like a zinger. It's not like immediate kind of punchline. So work on it a little bit more and see if you can get it a little bit tighter.
Yeah. So, okay, I have to throw this in before too much time slips by, because one of the first trips that we ever, because I don't think I announced this at the beginning of the episode. You're in Paris. And Americans have a love affair with Paris all around. Anyway, One of the first trips that my wife and I took to Paris, it was probably the second or third time we went, but it was early on, and it was we got on the plane, and I forget the celebrity who had died just before we got on the
Oh,
plane.
wait, was it Diana or something?
No. It
Yeah.
gets better. But we we land in Paris after hours and hours on the plane, and when we get off, we learn that Michael Jackson died.
Oh yeah. Okay. Right.
And so we spent nearly 2 weeks in Paris, and everywhere we went was a celebration of Michael Jackson. So
Yeah.
That pops in my head because that would have been a great segment for your book, I think. Too bad we didn't know each other back then.
No, but feel free to riff on that if you want to.
There you go.
Yeah.
So now are you self-publishing, or you have a traditional publisher?
I self-published. In fact,
Okay.
I was almost sure to go the self-publishing route from the start. I mean, your podcast and others' podcasts tend to encourage me towards that route.
Yeah.
I was going to go full on just into self-publishing, and then I have a friend who is actually traditionally published. He's a travel writer, and he writes travel guides and such. And he said, you know what, you'd be foolish to not just give it a try and just like send it out to
Right.
a number of agents and see what kind of pickup that you get.
Right.
So I wasted several weeks, if not a month, searching for the specific agents in my genre. Finding who represented authors that are sort of like people maybe like Bill Bryson,
Yeah.
Marina Luica. Who's that guy? Hessler, I think, that wrote Country Driving about him in China. Anyways, a number of those. I kind of knew ahead of time that I probably wasn't going to be successful in that, but I did that anyways, just to essentially say that I did it. And what I get from feedback from people is that if you're a new author, unless you have 15,000 followers, or perhaps you've sold 1,000, 2,000 copies, then they maybe take an interest in you. But I had neither going in for my first book.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure what your perspective is, but that's kind of my feeling, that unless you can maybe use that to make a name of yourself if you want to eventually convert. But I hear a lot of people they just never convert. They're doing so well.
And that's to me, that to me seems to be, it's kind of an irony that a lot of authors, particularly nonfiction authors, start self-publishing in order to build a platform, as we call it, right? They're building their audience or building their reach, and then when they get that platform to a level that gets the attention of agents and publishers, they're usually making so much money off of it that they would actually start losing money if they went traditional. So that's the great irony, is we spend all that time, effort, and energy building up our platform to attract that traditional audience, and then suddenly we don't need them anymore.
Yeah, and that is really the good route, and there's just a ton of great information out there. And so I thank you as well for your podcast, which is a great resource for our independent authors.
No, man, I appreciate that. That's what it's built to be. So I'm glad to hear that's working.
Yeah.
All right. So you how are you doing with these? I mean, doing all right?
The Chairfather just came out, which coincided as well with me taking another day job, which has been taking up most of my time. And with the first book, French License, I did okay with that. I had my best month 2 months ago, where I sold 100 copies through either different platforms or events. And it's like events have been very good for me, either with bookstores or with associations or other events where I would do like a speaking, and then selling the titles face to face. That tends to do well for me, although it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay, so you brought up your other book, and I was edging towards talking about how you're marketing and that sort of thing. I think that's a good segue
Okay.
into what you brought to me, which was the idea of you're doing book and audio tours. And I
Mhm.
wanted to get some clarification on what you meant, first of all, by book and audio tours.
Sure. Well, at the time that I had my first book out and I was preparing my second book, The Chairfather, I was approached by Gary from VoiceMap and said, hey, you seem like you're an author that knows a lot about Paris. Maybe you might be interested in doing an audio tour of Paris. And
Hmm.
I was kind of like, okay, well, that's interesting. That's a new medium for me. I've always liked, audio and voice, and to doing a little mixing. Probably not to your level with the equipment and the know-how of you, but it's something I like to futz around with.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued by the idea, and then that seemed to coincide directly in with the Chairfather book, because while I was going around the Père Lachaise cemetery, I noticed not just hey, this is kind of a funny idea, to go around and have pictures taken with the celebrities and imagine the interview that I would have with the celebrity, but also where the heck are these tombs?
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's really really hard to find the tombs. It's like some of them, like Jim Morrison. Unless you
Right.
have a crowd there, you're just not going to find it by yourself. The maps and the apps just don't bring you close enough to it. I'll give you like one example. GPS, for example, has a plus or minus 10 meter error range. Okay,
Right.
um, in that range, you can have more than 100 tombs. So
Wow.
how do you
Wow.
know
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you're supposed to be? So when I thought about the idea of how this might actually translate into a tour, the voice map people approached me, and this seemed to be like a perfect sort of you can say like an ancillary product, or you can say it'd be like maybe the core product, in
Hmm.
fact, of the experience, which is, it's not just a map that you have, where you're like looking at the map and then looking up and looking at the map and looking up and trying to figure out where you are. It's essentially, you arrive at the starting point and then you just put the phone in your pocket, and
Okay.
either through signals, through the GPS saying you're on the right track, you're not on the right track, or the signals from the audio guide, the person who's guiding you through the space, you can tell you're in the right spot. Don't look at this one, look at this one. It has this form, it's next to this tree. Walk
Right.
how many paces and stuff like that, and you're exactly in the spot that you're supposed to be. And once you're in the spot, then you can hear the story of the life of the person there. And within the book, it's kind of like a funny little photo and a funny little caption, but you're
Right.
not getting the essence of the full life of the person. Whereas in the audio tour, it's much more expansive. It's like we're spending 2 or 3 minutes talking about this person, which ends up being between, let's say, 300, 400 words
Hmm.
that would be expressed about this person, which is kind of interesting, but it's also a really interesting challenge. If I'm to rewind back to my days, because I was a journalism major in
Okay.
school, and what a lot of rookie journalists get is they get the obituary column. It's like, oh great, I got the obituary column. I
Yeah.
wanted to do these interesting events, or I want to go see sports, or I want to go do something else. No, you're doing the obituaries. But that's such a formative experience,
Yeah.
because to wrap somebody's entire life up in 300 words is an incredibly difficult exercise.
Yeah.
So you need to either choose an angle, or you need to um, figure out some way of expressing that, where it's sort of like true to the person or true to the experience, without bogging down in details or sounding like Wikipedia. You need
Right.
to really choose something which can be very unique, and it's also an exercise. If you do it well, you can put a lot of your own personality into it.
Yeah. That's a perspective I never considered, actually.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's one of those things. Every now and then someone says something about something like that, and suddenly after a lifelong career in media, I'm like, wow, I wouldn't mind, going on board and writing obituaries. I should try that.
Well, you see all these, Facebook groups and stuff like that. It's like
Yeah.
here, writing prompt, and
Yeah.
you can kind of riff on that writing prompt. But when you really have, okay, no, you've got this window here. You got 500 words you have to put in it. It has to be complete, and you cannot go over the 500 words. Go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us would really have a tough time doing that well.
Yeah, man. I love exercises like that. I mean, I have a copywriting background and a media background, so you always have to think in inches. You have to think in
exactly
minuscule little word counts. So yeah, I get it. That's a great way to shape yourself as a writer. That's interesting. So you were in journalism. I don't mean to sidetrack us, but what journalism outfit did you work with?
Well, it was mainly through like what do you call it? Different local newspapers. I graduated from Cal State Fullerton, which had I don't know, considered to be a top 10 journalism program for whatever that's worth at the time. And then got some gigs in local newspapers and did some freelancing in magazines and such. What I really wanted to do was be a sports writer. I thought, gosh, this is fantastic. I want to do this, and I was infatuated with sports and really wanted to make that my career. But when I saw the folks that were, I was in my 20s, like 22 or something like that, and I saw guys in their early 30s. Doing that, and they still didn't have the beat that they wanted. They still didn't have their own column, and they couldn't necessarily make their own decisions about their writing and such. So it seemed to me, gosh, do I want to spend 10 years before I get the chance to write the stuff that I really want? But that's what you got to do, and it's a great formative experience if you want to do that. Personally, I saw that, and I ran kicking and screaming to something else where I could make a little bit more money, the marketing and advertising side.
Yeah, is that what you do now? Is that your day job now?
Yeah.
We always end up in marketing.
Exactly, which is kind of like you'd think that. That I would know these things, but marketing is so vast and it's constantly changing. So even somebody like me that's worked more half my life in either marketing or advertising, I still need to figure out how to best market my book and my creative endeavors. It's a full-time job, and anybody that sort of chides themselves, oh gosh, I'm not selling enough, or I'm not making enough, or I'm doing this and I'm not getting the results, or I'm paying this much, and don't get on yourself. This is hard for everybody.
Oh yeah, no, it's very difficult. That's why there are so many programs and podcasts and books. I mean, that cover just that sub segment of marketing for authors. Like there's so much material, and it's overwhelming to some folks. It's a tough chore, man. I think, and I was calling out because it's like we always say. I was in media and everything, journalism. Yeah. I started my career in journalism, and we have these like Woodward and Bernstein dreams, and we end up with
of course.
With like
break that big story.
Yeah. And then you go into marketing and advertising, everyone's like Don Draper, and it's nothing like that. I don't even know if I could survive a Don Draper lifestyle, honestly.
No, apparently the good old days were before we got into it,
Yeah, no joke, man. Because I'm like, I actually was a full-time copywriter with some ad agencies when Mad Men came out. And I remember looking at it and thinking, I'm a copywriter. My copywriting career is nothing at all like Don Draper's career. Like I get no say. I don't get to take any lunches. I don't get any of this.
No, none of it.
So jumping back in, because I wanted to circle back around because you actually have a link and I want to share it with the audience. But the voice map thing does that help you with marketing your work at all?
Yeah, it does. What I'm doing is, just take a step back. I haven't done what you're essentially supposed to do, and I think your example is telling as well. I haven't started a series, where I have book one, book two, book three, and such like that. I
Uh-huh.
just kind of followed my idea, my initial idea, which was just like a one and done idea for a French license, which covers 10 years of my experience as an expat here in France.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to do, French license two for like the next 10 years. I mean, who knows where I'm going to be, in the next version. So I jumped from that to Chair Father, which is more sort of like a tour and kind of a humorous, like photo book kind of thing. The audience for book number one isn't necessarily going to be the audience for number two. So I'm not really building on my audience and such like that. So the idea with the voice map tours is that perhaps this is something that could, sort of cross-pollinate. Somebody picks up my book and they says, "Oh, there's a tour," and then they pick up the tour. Somebody listens to the tour and say, "Hey, there's a companion photo book that goes with this. You may want to pick that up." And then while you're at it, if you think that this is entertaining, why don't you look at book one, which may or may not appeal to them. So I'm trying to build that sort of cross pollination and such like that, and you can do different things like I'm going to do now, which is give away the first tour for free. So to explain about the Chair Father, there's about 50 different personalities that we visit in the Chair Father, but that's way too much for an audio tour. So it's about 15 for each audio tour. So I've got audio tour number one up, which is covering 15 personalities. And then I'm just completing audio tour number two, which I'm hoping to release later this month. And then audio three, which I'm hoping to release next month, covering another 15 personalities. So this would give somebody, if they wanted to do like all three tours, a really, really good view of all the different personalities that they can see in the Père Lachaise cemetery. So if that appeals to the folks that are listening and watching right now, we can tell them about an offer that VoiceMap will give you, so that if you're not already, if you haven't already downloaded the app, you can download the app and get your first tour for free. They have tours from 100 different destinations all over the world. So even if you're not coming to Paris, you can get one which is probably close to you or close to where you might be vacationing next. And certainly if you do come to Paris, you can use the code to get a free tour, one of my free tours.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to put this in the show notes, everybody. So don't worry about writing it down if you're driving or something like that. But read it out for us, Joe, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. For those who are not behind the wheel, go to voicemap.me /share/JStart. That's JSTART.
There you go.
So just tell them Joe sent you, and you'll get your first VoiceMap tour for free.
Joe sent you. These are cool. I'm gonna have to check it out because I'm having a tough time really envisioning what it's like. But it sounds very cool. It sounds in my head it's an NPR style kind of thing. So it's probably far from that, but I want to check it out.
Yeah, it's really fun. I think for any of your nonfiction listeners, this may be like an addition that could be something you may consider for your book. Let's say, I know Kevin, you're really into archaeology and history and such like that. Imagine a visit of a site or
that's what I was thinking.
A place where some historical event happened, and you're kind of taking people through that. It may just be an open field, and I've gone on tours like that where just having the audio in your ear, you're looking at just grass, but it's the story which is being told to you while you're in that place, and the feeling, because you know that events happened right where you are, even though the scenery may not be amazing, the experience is, and it's really something to check out.
Okay, so something just clicked with me on this. So I think I have a mental bead on what this is now, because I've done this before. I've taken one of these tours
Yeah.
Not this specifically, but they're here in the area I live in. They had someone go through and do some tour like this for
Yeah.
some of the monuments and things that are around the area. So you can go
Yeah.
and dial. It's like those when you go into museums and they give you a headset and you can listen to a audio tour of the museum. Is it kind of along those
Exactly.
lines? Yeah.
It's along those lines, and you're going through and you're seeing from thing to thing, and then you're being told maybe a story or a bit more information about it, and
Yeah.
it does move pretty quickly like that. I mean, I mean, like I said, 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes you're spending a minute and a half.
Yeah.
If that's all that you have to say, and really. Um, Spending 4 minutes, standing in one place is really a long time. So the one good thing about voice map is they have an editor that works with you sort of automatically, so
Oh,
they
okay.
know these things, and they know that maybe you want to get the person moving while you're speaking about the event, and so that there's no sort of downtime between one site and the next site.
Yeah. This is
They
cool,
have
man.
really good advice that I think helps make the tour better. And plus, it's pre-recorded audio, so you can have
Mhm.
fun with it.
Yeah, no, no, this is very cool. I can see this. This is
Yeah.
something I think is kind
I
of
guess
neat.
I think we're gonna see a tour from you probably soon.
Probably. And I'm thinking in terms of like, we've talked about this for nonfiction, but I think fiction, if depending on your setting,
Hmm.
you could do this. It would be a lot of fun. I'm already thinking of in terms like I could go to some of the places I've researched for my books, uh,
Yeah.
and tour them and use this basically like bonus material for my books. Like I could
Sure.
see doing something like that. Very cool. Or just using it for research purposes. I go and I do a video or an audio tour so that I can have that for my own research for the books. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can
Absolutely.
think of 100 ways to use this. There's two. Everyone else has got to come up with your own. 90
Right.
years ago. So, all right, man. Hey, well, look, this has been cool. First, I appreciate you being on the show, man. And I don't think
Sure.
I realize now that I did not tell anyone what your name was to start. All I said was Joe. This is Joe Start. He's in Paris. He
Yeah.
is a nonfiction author, author of The Chair Father, which sounds like a hilarious book. Is it available in ebook or is it print only?
It's available in ebook as well on a number of platforms. So you can probably check on it on your regular platform where you get your ebooks and find it there.
Excellent, man. All right. Well, great. We're going to check that out. Everyone listening, of course, you'll find links to this in the show notes of the episode. So go when you're not driving, of course. Go check that out. Some of you are watching this on YouTube. Hi. And
Hello.
yeah, you'll find in the show notes of this episode everything you need to know about Joe Start and the links to all his stuff. So check that out. And I'll have the link to voicemap.me/share/JStart. That's the one that'll get you the free audio tour. Man, Joe, this has been a cool interview, man. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
Right. Thank you, Kevin. And
right.
pleasure being here.
Thanks, man. All right, everybody in within the sound of my voice, you're probably hearing the groovy theme music right now. You may dance and place at will. We're gonna hop on over and get you some industry news, but otherwise, you want to stick around for that. And otherwise, I will see you all next time.
Your book the way it was meant to be heard, with a fully custom soundtrack based on your material, an album of music that perfectly fits your characters, your settings. Hear your book today. SonataInscribe.com.
Hey, thank you for sticking around to the other side of the interview. I appreciate you being here, and I hope you got a lot out of that chat with Joe. Some of the stuff he's doing, it's just really fascinating. The idea of those audio tours, kind of going out and exploring the world around you and recording that in one way or another. You could do this. There's an opportunity here, I think, for for authors on a couple of levels, and I'm really intrigued by it. I'm gonna kind of let's explore this. All right. So one of the things I kind of dig right now, we always have these devices on us that allow us to do practically anything we want. We can record audio and video everywhere we go with our smartphones, right? You can buy devices to do this sort of thing. But I kind of like having that smartphone with me all the time anyway. It's just an always on sort of thing. I think where this could be really helpful for authors, if we start looking around us and finding the stories around us and then recording that in audio or video, record our thoughts about it, maybe catch an interview with someone, catch some photos, some video of something happening. You've got now a resource that you can use for your marketing, which is something I know a lot of authors don't like to think about, but it's very important. You can use this stuff as content and resources for your stories as well. Especially if you're nonfiction, you can use this to explore the things that you write about on a nonfiction level. For example, you go to conferences on a particular topic, you can kind of find this story there. You can find experts that you can interview on the spot, ask questions to help you beef up the nonfiction titles. But you can do this for fiction as well. I've been sharing lately in my newsletter, my email newsletter, these tidbits of history that I uncover as I do my research for my books. It's been very interesting to see how people react to this stuff. First of all, everyone loves it. And they're long. These are long emails. I write these sort of plain text emails these days. No real polish to the thing. No like fancy buttons or fancy graphics. I sometimes include a book cover or something like that. What I tend to do is I do sort of promote the latest book. I was promoting my pre-order for Stepping Maze, which, by the way, released today. Today is the day, January 25th. Did very well. Very impressed with how that went. If you want to check that out, go to bookstoread.com/steppingmaze, and you'll be able to see that on Amazon. It's doing very well. So I've been sharing these tidbits of research. I'm pulling together a little side project that this stuff is actually going to go into. I like doing things that do double duty or triple duty or quadruple duty, and that's definitely what's happening here. So let me back up and kind of work through this, and so bear with me. So here's what I'm doing. I'm writing emails to my mailing list, who are already somewhat vetted. You know, they're there for my work. I know what kind of stories they're looking for because they buy my books. So I'm sharing bits of historic information that I uncover as I do research for these books. And I write it as a sort of essay style, a blog post kind of thing. And I share it with that audience. And I get feedback. I get tons of feedback. People really appreciate this stuff. So now I'm engaging my readership with content that I know they like, which keeps them happy and keeps them on the list. And a lot of those folks are telling me they're sharing that stuff with family members and friends, which I actually ask them to do from time to time. But some of them do that unbidden. And that means that they're helping me grow that list. And the content that they're using to help me grow that list helps to vet that audience. So you see where I'm going here? This is me creating content for a specific audience, my ideal readers. Those ideal readers go out and find other ideal readers on my behalf, share that content, and then that's the social proof those readers need to come and join my list. So I'm refining that process a little. I just wrote an original short story called The Janai Sigil, and that is, I built a cover for it and everything. It's branded exactly like the novels. And I have that available now on my website at kevintumlinson.com. You can go over there, click I've created a little ad graphic that invites people to get on the list, offers that short story for free, and people sign up and they get that story. So I use BookFunnel. Thank you, Damon Courtney. I use BookFunnel to help me gather that list, grow that list, and to vet. He does the whole double opt-in thing, so everything's compliant. Everything works out really well for me. So that's how I'm starting to kind of funnel some of that. That content that I write, though, like I said, I like to do triple duty, quadruple duty. So not only does it serve the list, but I'm going to take that and I'm recording. I'm going to read and record those little blurbs for a podcast I'm building called The Written World. That's still kind of in progress. Time permitting, I'm going to get these things knocked out. My goal is to have that sometime this year. But that's a reader-facing podcast, and at the end of it, I invite people to come to my website, check out my books, join my mailing list. So it is meant to help with discoverability. It's meant to help with building my list. There's so much, so much. I could just fire hose you with things that are happening right now and things that I've discovered and things that I'm trying. But try to keep this focused on this idea of finding the story around you. So, so that's part of finding the story around me. And my recording of that is writing that essay blog post. Eventually, that will be literally recorded as an audio file for a podcast, and then I'll already have the transcript of that podcast that I can include as a blog post. So now there's 2 more avenues of discoverability. SEO kicks in at that point. People searching for certain keywords, they'll find those blog posts. And I have a strategy around this, which I'll share in a future episode. So I'm doing this as I go. Now, the audio tours and grabbing footage of things and interviews of people as you're out in the world around you, here's where I think this could fold in. So I'm a big fan of content marketing. There are lots of ways to do marketing. You get plenty of advice about how to manage ads on Facebook and Amazon. These campaigns that you can do. It's all about numbers. It's all about data. There's plenty of advice out there about that. What I was always looking for and never got was how could I leverage content to help me market my work. So that's one of the things I've decided I'm going to focus on to help you folks, okay? The people listening and watching this podcast. The way I'm approaching this is, I'm already a content creator, and you are too. If you're writing books and blog posts and creating videos, that's all content. So what you have to do is get focused on, how you use that stuff. You got to be strategic about how you use that content. And I like the multi-purpose idea. So as I'm going along in the world, and I'm maybe I encounter a bit of history while I'm traveling, and I travel quite a bit. Even if you don't travel much yourself, even if all you do is get out locally, start looking for little stories in your local area that you can start turning into content for your audience. I love the idea of sharing this stuff with your mailing list because it's interaction, it's engagement. So the strategy I would recommend, the strategy I'm putting to work is everything gets shared to the list first. The great thing about this content, though, is that you own it, and you can use it any way you like, anytime you like. So I collect all this content, and I use Trello. So what I've got is a board in Trello with a bunch of, I've got a board. I think I'm trying to remember the hierarchy of Trello. So there's a board, there's your team, there's a board on that team. Within that board are sheets, and each sheet has cards. So I have cards. I have a sheet with a bunch of cards that are little tidbits of history that I discover in my research. But I also have one that is, every time I write one of these little essays for my mailing list, I include it in there. So that way I can leverage that later. I can read it for a podcast. I can use it as a blog post. I can pick, facts out of each card and put them together and synthesize an article for a publication. Or I can leverage it to write a short story. So there's a lot there. So the way this sort of works for me, what the strategy I'm using is I hit the list first, and then after a time I take that content and I produce something else that's outward facing, that's meant to garner the attention of potential readers. Now you can start using. I am already leveraging Facebook ads, for example, to spread that content wide, I also leverage services like Medium. Medium is an interesting sort of blogging platform. What I like about it versus a personal blog, I think you should have both. And I think you should put your content on your personal blog first. On Medium, they have a tool that will allow you to take the URL from your blog post, and drop it in, and it'll automatically scrape the content from your post and create a Medium story for you. Now, I recommend going through that and doing some tweaking and editing, making sure that photos show up and that they're in the right place, and that sort of thing. And maybe you can do things like add quotes from the article. It's a very clean system. I really like Medium. So that content will go there. So if you're paying attention to my strategy so far, let's just use this whole Written World podcast, which doesn't yet exist but will. But let's just walk through it a little. I do research for a book. I write the book. I publish the book. In emails to my list, I have tidbits of research that maybe I didn't use in the book, maybe didn't have a place in the book, or it was used in the book, and I want to share it. So I write a short essay. I call it an essay. Let's just call it a blog post. I write a blog post, but instead of posting it on the blog right away, I post its contents into an email. And I send that email to my list. I like to engage my list about once a week. That's me. Maybe yours is once a month. The feedback I get can actually help me refine the story that I've told. I've already decided with the last email I sent, I know that there's some information I'm going to include when I go live with that. And by live, I mean public, beyond the list. I know that there's some things I'm going to add to it because there were questions. There were people asking about, sort of the outcome of things. So that list now has helped me refine that story. And then now that I have that content, at a later date, a future date, I will create a blog post and a podcast episode and tie those two things together. The podcast can have its own audience. The blog can have its own audience. And I put it out there and make that live. Then I take the link for that blog post and I go to Medium. I drop that in. I let it import everything. And I have a blurb pointing people back to the website, telling people how to get on my mailing list, all the crucial call to action stuff. I put that in each article. And then that goes live on Medium. And then I get feedback from that. I get people highlight things, people comment, people share. I will encourage people to share. So now I've got all that content, and then I also roll that back around and send it back to my list because now they can participate in the podcast. And I ask them to share the blog post, share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. It'll be my plan right now is to have this podcast available in audio and video. So really I'm creating 3 channels for this one article. 4 if you count the email list, 5 if you count Medium as a separate channel. You see what I'm saying here? One piece of content, and it goes in 5 directions and can pull in a vetted audience. Vetted meaning they are interested in the stuff I write about. If they're interested in the nonfiction portion of what I write about, the research that goes into the books, there is a better chance that they'll like the fiction portion of it as well. If they don't, they might still get on the mailing list and might still support me and spread the word about my work. So this one piece of content gets me multiple assets and resources. So that's the idea. This is not a new idea. I actually had this idea myself decades ago. But I tried to, as I often do, I tried to go too big with it, too ambitious with it, too fast. I could have started much simpler and gotten much further ahead. This is not something that's difficult for you to do. There's no real cost. Depending on how you do your mailing list, it could cost you in subscribers. Cost you money to build your mailing list on MailChimp or elsewhere. That could be a concern and a challenge. But you got to invest something in your business. That's what this is. This is a business. So but Medium is free. You can get free blogging platforms. If you don't have a website, you should. And there are ways to get free websites. WordPress is one. Squarespace, however, is my web host of choice. I pay like $20 a month for hosting, and Squarespace has a ton of features built in that are easy for you to integrate into your site. There's no plugins to have to download and figure out. They're very secure. They're built on Amazon's web service platform, so it's very stable. So that's my recommendation, but do what you got to do. There's Wix, there's WordPress, there's Blogger. There's a ton of ways out there to build your website for free if you have to. I do recommend kind of popping a little and upgrading, but you can use what I call the MVP process, the minimal viable product. Do what you got to do to build what you need now at whatever price point you can afford, whatever overhead you can manage, and then over time, constantly look for ways to upgrade and move on to something a little better. That works very well, and it's a good way to. It's a good philosophy to adopt for your life. So that's pretty much the nutshell of the whole thing. It's content marketing for me. And there's a lot of ways to look at content marketing, but for me, it's the best platform for authors, especially new authors and will-be authors, to sort of build and grow. It is sort of a long game in a sense, because when you hear people talk about building a platform, there's a lot of ways to look at platforms as well. The way I consider a platform is anyone you're able to reach directly. That's your platform. In other words, everyone who is subscribing to my newsletter, everyone who is subscribing to podcasts and blogs, anyone who is following me on social media, if I can talk to you directly, you're part of my platform. And that includes your physical relationships too. So when you're out and about and you meet people in coffee shops and you go to bookstores and you happen to mention that you're an author, maybe you have one of my t-shirts that says, I'm an author. Great conversation starter. This is a way for you to engage the public directly, and therefore it's part of your platform. There are other definitions of platform, but this is the way I think of it, because this helps me be more focused and directed in how I approach these people. You want a well-vetted platform, so you want people who are interested in the kind of thing you're willing to produce, people who are going to support you when you do produce this content, and it's ultimately it's all about how do you reach the right reader, the ideal reader for your work. Think of how to do that. Think of ways to do that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm thinking of ways to do that for my own work, and I think these ways are going to be useful for you. And I don't think that it's a problem to invest time and money in learning how to do things like Facebook ads or whatever. I think that that's a good investment for anyone who is interested in upping their game. What I've been doing is kind of dialing back on that stuff to refine what I think of as the foundation of my marketing strategy for my work. I almost hate calling it a marketing strategy. There's a sort of connotation to that that fills me with a tiny bit of dread. But it's, a lot of people obsess over the numbers. They obsess over the data. I think that as Brian Meeks put it, if you want to hit the next level, it's all about data. I do agree with that. Once you get to a certain level, a certain stability in what you're producing and how you're working, and in the income you're making, if you want to carry it further, that's the tool. I think that's at least one of the tools. That said, there are plenty of authors out there who who reach a bigger, broader, wider audience, and they don't know anything about data. So really, there are multiple paths up this mountain. And my path by choice is generally going to be content. You should also do things that are manageable, time-wise for you, stress-wise for you. If you are, hold on, let me hit my cough button. Had a little hitch in my throat there. Delicious water. So you have to do the things that are going to be sustainable for you. If video is something that you find fun and find that you could do, you don't mind spending the time on it and you're good at it, then video can be a great content tool for you. If video fills you with dread and makes you stress out, and if you can't think of a way to do this and it's just with some sustainability, then don't do video. If audio works great for you, which for me, for a very long time, audio was pretty much it. Video is relatively new in my game, even though I worked in film and TV and did video production for a while. That's one of the reasons why I didn't integrate video right away, because in my head, video is time consuming, and it is. If you're going to do, depending on what you're going to do, video can take up a lot of time, soak up a lot of your energy, a lot of your resources, and the benefit of it isn't always worth it. However, so there are ways to do this. If you're in this sort of MVP philosophy, thought process, what is the minimal viable product when it comes to video? I still, to this day, get tons of people who give me advice, unsolicited advice, usually, about how I should run my YouTube channel. I think they're all brilliant. I think they're all wise. I am heeding their advice as much as I possibly can. But my approach is always going to be, what's the minimal viable product I can create to get this, to make sure I'm on track. And if I can upgrade later, I will. My whole method is to dive in and do things that I know are sustainable, work out the process of that, refine that to make it much simpler and much easier, templatize things as much as possible, and wiggle the format until it works for me and produces something I'm happy enough to put out in front of the public. So video has been the same way. Video for the Wordslinger podcast, for example, has been like that. I've refined the show. If you've been listening and or watching for a while now, you get that I've changed formats a couple of times subtly. I've made subtle changes to the format. I used to have a news segment. I've dropped that. I may bring it back at some point in the future, but I have to find the process that makes that sustainable for me. For the way it was happening before, it wasn't sustainable. So, but I've got some thoughts on how that could be, and I may start producing another news segment later. So, but that's how this goes. I'm producing content in a way that is, comfortable for me, that I can keep up with, and that still provides value for the audience. In this case, you guys. As far as equipment and that sort of thing, I've been very blessed because I love gadgets. So I've got plenty of gear, most of it left over from my TV and film days. That works perfect for this stuff, and I buy little things here and there to upgrade. I make it work. So I think that's the key, is you need to assess what you have and you can make it work. I could do this podcast with nothing but an iPhone. It wouldn't have, some of the quality might suffer a little, but maybe not. Maybe it would be perfect. I mean, people do this kind of thing all the time. But I could do it with an iPhone alone. And I mean soup to nuts, man. I could even produce the show that way if I really wanted to. But I've got another method, and I've got other resources. And there's plenty of free software out there. I'm using a piece of software called OBS to record my portion of these episodes. I use Zoom.us to record the interviews. You can do that for free. Although I pay for a pro account, but that was the MVP, right? I started with free until I learned how that software worked, saw that there were some features that I could get a lot of benefit out of if I upgraded, and then I upgraded. And that's the way it should work for everything you do. I think I don't want to get too far off in the weeds on this, but I hope that what you're taking out of this is a strategy that you could use in your own marketing for your own books, to help promote what you're doing to the right audience, but in a sustainable way, in a way that isn't going to stress you out and isn't going to, cause you to give up, hunker down in a corner and cry or whatever, which I've done. So, anyway, I'll explore this more in future episodes, but I wanted to kind of outline this, give you a framework for this. The strategy I'm using with Written World, it's a very reader-facing strategy. I don't have a reader-facing content presence right now, which is unfortunate, other than the content I give to my mailing list and my books, of course. But that's changing. 2019 is all about that sort of shift in my business, because I think I do very well with how things are now, and I'm starting to see that I can improve on that and do even better. And we're gonna explore that together. So that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed the chat with Joe, and please go check out his work. His website, Start Going Places, is interesting, and check that out. He's got that voice map channel, which you can find all this in the show notes. Go pick up his book, which should be a very interesting read. And other than that, if you're looking for some thrillers to read, I hear Kevin Tumlinson has released The Stepping Maze, and if you get on my mailing list at kevintumlinson.com, you can get a free short story called The Janai Sigil, which is so far getting very positive feedback from the test audience I've been using. I'm about to release that, by the way, to my entire list, which is another part of my strategy. I can further vet the list, we'll say. I can all those who go ahead and sign back up, essentially, and get that short story. I know that those folks are truly interested in the fiction. You see where I'm going with that? So, anyway, we're gonna roll on out from here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really I enjoy our chats each week, even though today I forgot it was Friday until about an hour ago. I had no idea. I was in no way prepared to record this episode when I realized it was time. That's because I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a lot for you. Anyway, thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and a fabulous week ahead. God bless each and every one of you, and I'll see you all next time. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Wordslinger podcast. Now, you can support this show by visiting wordslingerpodcast.com. That's where you're going to find back episodes, books by me, and links to anything and everything Wordslinger. And be sure to subscribe to this show on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and anywhere else fine podcasts are sold. I'm Kevin Tumlinson. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.